What's up, you guys? So, in case you're new to my channel, my name is Pardes, and I am a digital nomad. This is really funny to even be introducing myself because the people who watch my videos have been watching for years now. I've been making vlogs on and off for, I think, almost like 6 or 7 years at this point, or longer actually. The first video I think I have on here might be almost 10 years old. So I just love vlogging, love sharing myself, my thoughts, my life. I used to do live streams very regularly, almost every single day. And there was a point at which I was making edited vlogs every single day. And yeah, so I'm a digital nomad. I live in Bali, Indonesia with my boyfriend, Andrew. And I've struggled with my health, my mental health, for as long as I can remember. And I want to talk about how it's been for me as a traveler and someone whose life is constantly changing. So it's very common actually for people who struggle with hypervigilance and being in their fight or flight to actually be digital nomads, because when you're prone to your fight or flight always being active, it's gonna cause you to try to do things out of survival mode. It's gonna cause you to change your environment, to make up and break up relationships. It's gonna cause you to make new friends, dump old friends. It's gonna cause you to move around a lot, to quit your job, to get new jobs, to change your careers. It's gonna cause like a lot of changes in your life very frequently. This just the nature of being in your fight or flight. You know, your fight or flight, it's kind of like it's like a permanent upper in your system, as opposed to being always depressed or stagnant in one place. Your fight or flight is, and I mean sometimes it's together, but in my case, my fight or flight has been a lot of panic, fight or flight, anxiety, self-defense, freak out, all that good stuff. Some of it you guys have seen me talk about on this channel with the context of work, relationships, moving around. For example, the fact that I've had, when I used to live in DC, and I would, the jobs I had when I was working in the corporate world, I wouldn't last longer than like maybe 5 or 6 months at a time in each of those jobs, maximum. Sometimes as short as like a couple of weeks is how long I would last in a job before getting fired or quitting or something happening. When you're constantly in your fight or flight and you have no idea. As a young person, I had no idea that I was in my fight or flight. I just thought that I was a certain way. And I thought that I had probably some kind of mental disorder and whatever, that needed to, that would be easily fixed with medication if I just, popped a pill and it would make the problem go away. But it really affected everything else in my life. It affected my ability to like be with myself for more than a few minutes, to be with my thoughts. Being in your fight or flight is not a sustainable way to live. It's just a way for your body to help you run away from the bear, or the scary thing that's trying to kill you. It's a very short-lived relief type of thing. It's not something that will help you live a long, stable life. So, I'm not like an expert on hypervigilance and any health stuff, so go find a therapist if you want an expert. But I want to tell you about how I've been dealing with my anxiety and my fight or flight popping off so much. What I do to keep myself healthy now as a digital nomad living in Bali, Indonesia. What I used to do, I was living in the States. I lived in the States for about 29 years. I lived in the States. And in between, like, I lived a year in Israel. I lived in different places in the States. I moved around quite a bit. I traveled a little bit out of the States. But I was living there full time for about 29 years. And I lived in mostly big cities. In Los Angeles was where I grew up. I lived in New York City. I lived in Washington, D.C. And I lived in Texas, Dallas. And I lived also in Virginia. Anyways, and a few other little places. So, one thing that it's very tempting. So let me just first of all talk about hypervigilance. And as you can see, I'm jumping around a lot because actually I am having a little bit of a spike in my anxiety lately, past few days, just because we had another move and just new changes, new things to adjust to. It's always kind of like this whenever there's a new change. And I'm sick with some kind of flu. So I just want to talk about hypervigilance real quick. Hypervigilance is like when your body is in a state of being extra alert. Some people say, inflammation, everything feels much louder, everything sounds louder, everything feels more itchy, all the mosquito bites feel itchier, everything. It's more, your senses are in a heightened sense of alertness because your body is ready to fight or flee from the bear, from whatever is the thing that it's afraid is going to kill you. So that's what hypervigilance is. And as opposed to just like a momentary fight or flight, like just your body's natural reflex to fighting in a momentary threat to your body, which every healthy human has. Hypervigilance is kind of like more sustained. It's like when your body has been in fight or flight for so long that it becomes like just a way of being. It becomes like breathing and living and existing in your fight or flight. It can really damage your nervous system. It can cause you to have certain personality traits. I put that in quotes because I personally don't, or at least in my life, I don't really identify with these traits. I see them as things that I can change because I see myself as a very powerful person. But yeah, it influences like everything in your life because it's just there constantly. It feels like a hum in the background. The anxiety is just like always there. You're just never feeling okay. You can't like fully relax, lie down, be with your thoughts. If anything is too chill in your life, anything is too stable, your body is like, this isn't natural, we have to fight it, we have to like change things, get around, we have to bring more upheaval into our system because we're just not used to things being normal and relaxed and chill. So hypervigilance can oftentimes be very damaging in the lives of people that struggle with it. And I've struggled with hypervigilance for basically as long as I can remember. I don't want to go too much into my background. My parents escaped from a war in the Middle East, and I was born in the States right after my parents got married and they moved to the States. And as a child, I struggled with instability until I was about like 10 years old, I would say, is like the cutoff, where my family was very unstable until then. We were very poor. We were living with other people, borrowing money. food stamps, all the stuff that new immigrants in the States deal with, and all the abuse and scary things that comes with being very poor in a country that you don't speak the language. So I had fight or flight in my formative years. It became part of, not only in my formative years, even before I came into this earth, my parents were in their fight or flight because they were escaping from a war. They were escaping through the mountains. They were being smuggled. They were assuming disguises to get out of their country. And they were under threat of being killed. So that's a legitimate fight or flight situation. And so I grew up, spent a lot of time in my fight or flight. In school, I actually was a really good student. I was very smart. I was like a straight A student, but I would get bored very quickly. Some people call it ADHD. I don't like to give, some people like to use all kinds of disorder names. I don't like to give myself names of disorders because, again, I find myself to be very powerful, and I find myself to be able to exist beyond the paradigm of any single disorder. So much has changed in my life. And also, if I were to exist in the realm of either any of the single disorders that anyone could give me, I would basically have all of them. At any point in my life, if I would have stuck to any of the disorders, I'd be on a lot of medications, and I would have all the disorders. I wouldn't be as wealthy as I am today. I wouldn't be as healthy as I am today. I wouldn't be able to have children. I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I want to do with my life if I would have allowed myself to be stuck in the paradigm of and I know people do and they're fine, but in my personal situation, that just wasn't something I was willing to add as an obstacle for myself. So in school, I did really well. I was a straight A student, but again, I ditched classes. I didn't really, wasn't socially involved. I didn't really like to be socially involved. I ran away from home quite a bit growing up. I didn't like to study. I mean, I would study and get A's, so I need to spend so much time studying. So people thought I was like a genius sometimes, my family members. But I just didn't like to study. So I put all of my energy into memorizing everything the first time. I was school smart, maybe not so socially smart. I had trouble in my social interactions. I enjoyed spending time alone. And then as I got older, I started to become more socially involved. I went, studied in Israel for a year. Went to college in LA, made friends, moved to Washington, D.C. after college, got a lot of cool jobs that put me on the radar with politics and media in that world. And in DC, I moved around a lot. I had a lot of different jobs. And a lot of different friends, relationships, places I lived in. I moved around like crazy. And I wasn't even a digital nomad. I was just a person whose life was constantly changing around. I remember, I just have so many stories I can tell you. I remember having a panic attack, which I didn't know at the time was a panic attack. I thought it was just the world was ending, and I was hyperventilating in the middle of the street. I was walking, and I don't know why or how I knew that there was an AA. Oh, and I was drinking a lot and doing drugs, but I had no intention of stopping to do that. Because it was too fun. And, but I knew that there was AA nearby, and I like walked into the AA hyperventilating, and there was like a guy there, like an old black dude, and he was like, I think he was like organizing the thing, and I like went up to him and I like tried to become I don't even remember exactly how it went, because I don't even think I was all there, but I told him I needed a friend and I talked to someone. I don't remember what I even talked to him about, but then I just like stood there and vented all my frustrations, and then I felt so good, and then I left and I never talked to that guy again. And I think I even saw him, somehow he knew to catch up with me, or how to catch up with me, and he tried, and I just like ignored him because like I didn't really need him anymore, because I had already gotten what I needed, which was just a friend in that moment to vent to. So that's basically just one example of how spontaneous I was. I would travel to different countries to do like journalism and whatever. I was just kind of open to anything and everything in my 20s. Now I'm 31. And a lot of that wasn't just me being adventurous, but also just me trying to get out of my head. The inside of my head was just total chaos. And I made a lot of good friends, connections, burned a lot of good friends, connections, burned a lot of bridges, changed my political opinions quite a lot, left the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community and the Orthodox Jewish community, basically left the religious community totally. I did that cold turkey, and that was really hard, actually, but I didn't really have time to process it too much or dwell on it too much, because so much was happening in my life. And then finally, 2 years ago, this guy that I was dating on and off, that is now my life partner and hopefully the future father of my children, decided to travel the world together and be digital nomads. And we did it also very spontaneously, very much like, next month let's do this thing, rent out our homes, see what happens. I had been planning to do something like this for a while, because I knew that I just couldn't, with the way that I just couldn't be in one place and be okay. I was in like a constant, forever state of fight or flight. But the decision to do it happened kind of spontaneously. So we did it, and we've been living as digital nomads ever since. And it's been a huge learning lesson, like being a digital nomad and living with hypervigilance, and not only that, living together with someone, being in a relationship when you're someone who struggles with constant 24/7 fight or flight. It kind of forces you to grow and develop in ways that you definitely wouldn't if you're single, or if you're in a relationship where you're not very close and intimate with someone. So if you're in a long distance relationship, or if you're in a relationship where both parties are like kind of doing their own thing, don't think I would have grown or learned as much about myself as I have been with a partner who's extremely like mine, who's extremely close, intimate, like attuned with his emotions, in tune with his emotions. And yeah, so a few ways that I've been dealing with hypervigilance as a digital nomad. it's really difficult to have hypervigilance. As you probably already know, it's really difficult to be constantly in your fight or flight. It's really bad for your health, but it's also just like really difficult. It's difficult to know what your opinions, thoughts, feelings are going to be from one moment to the next, because you don't feel in control of your emotions, because your emotions are basically ruled by survival instinct. So you can be in a relationship where you're having freakouts. I didn't have freakouts before being in my current relationship. I had them like maybe a handful of times when I was like a teenager. I had them with my mom, but they were so severe, and it caused like blindness, like in extreme rage. When you have extreme rage, you're so angry that you go blind in your eyes. Like that's like how intense my panic attacks, my freakouts were against my mom. Like literally like less than I mean like maybe 2 or 3 times it happened as a teenager. Maybe 2 times that I can remember. And there were times when it like almost happened, and I knew that I should exit the situation real quick before it got too bad. My anger feelings of intense fight flight. So after that, I knew that I never wanted to be in that position again, and I just have never gotten close with anyone enough for that to come back. I've been always just a very easy, non-scary person, or if there was ever a situation where it got too crazy or too difficult, I always left the situation, so I never have to be confronted with the little monster inside of me again, which I really saw as a monster. I saw myself as a person that had a monster living inside of her. And I've lived that way for like a long time. Like I don't want to spend too much time with my feelings. I don't like listening to really sad music because it's going to make me stay with my feelings too much. And it's going to make me have to confront the monster. So it was a kind of emotionally avoidant. And then I met this guy who wanted to know everything about me and wanted to actually be close and talk about things in a real way. Not that I didn't have that before, I didn't have to. Like I wasn't, it wasn't really required as much as it was in this relationship. So, especially because I started to live with my partner now, and then obviously we started to travel the world together. It's like a 24/7 thing. You can't really avoid sharing yourself and your ups and downs with the person anymore. You kind of have to accept that your monster is gonna come out in front of this person, and it did a lot. So I had a lot of freakouts, especially like the first year of traveling together. Totally new person that I was scared of. I was scared of his life. I was scared of his family, his background. Actually, I was terrified because he wasn't like an ordinary person. He had like he just had a lot going on in his life. And he had a lot of people in his life that I was terrified of, and not to mention I was coming from a background that I had been working in politics in the States. And I was already kind of paranoid. I thought that people would try to kill me because I'd been working in politics when I was in Washington, D.C. And I was also just trying to get away from that. And he knew a lot of people that were very, very obsessed with politics also, but on the other side, on the side of the people that I was scared that were trying to kill me or hurt me in some way. So I was basically in my fight or flight like the whole time, the first almost full year. But it forced me to learn, especially traveling, being a digital nomad, being together 24/7, not having certain comforts, not having certain access to medication, not having access to a gym all the time. Like I used gym as a coping situation when I was living in the States and I was living in one place and I had a gym membership. Traveling, you don't always have access to a gym. And if you do, it's just not going to be the same gym. You're kind of having to create new systems for yourself every time you move. Where do I eat while I live in this place? What do I do for fun? What do I wear? How do I travel? How do I pack? So it was really hard to get used to, but I think that it was also just really accelerated, like a crash course on me. I learned so much about myself. It's been really rewarding also. And I feel really lucky. I feel really lucky to be in this situation. I haven't had any alcohol, medications, no ibuprofen, nothing. I just haven't. I had one ibuprofen actually 5 months ago. I had an ibuprofen, and that's when I was taking out my IUD. I have not had any kind of medications. Other than that, I haven't had alcohol. And I don't plan to again for as long as I can. And yeah, what was I saying? So I notice a lot of people are struggling with this. For a really long time, I thought that this is just a Pardes problem. I have a problem and this is my hypervigilance, and I went to see a psychiatrist, and I talked about this in another video. I went to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was like, yeah, you have you probably are bipolar, and he you me on a bipolar antipsychotic medication, and that didn't work. And he's like, oh, well, maybe we need to up your dosage. Oh, maybe you have ADHD, we need to give you Ritalin. Oh, maybe there's anxiety, Seroquel. Oh, there's side effects from the medications, you're forgetting things. Oh, here's a medication for forgetfulness as a side effect from the other medications. The medications are very, very expensive. And the thing about a lot of these medications is that they kind of stop you, they kind of anchor you in a lot of ways, which I didn't want to be anchored. I didn't want to be financially anchored to such an expensive thing that would force me to have a expensive health insurance, that would force me to stay living in the States, that would force me to have a life that I didn't want. Because I always knew that I wanted to move out of the States. So let me talk about what I do. What I do as a digital nomad to deal with my hypervigilance. So first of all, my hypervigilance is not really nearly as intense as it used to be. I'm in a very stable situation, more than I've ever been in my life. I'm not in debt. I don't have any emergencies, pending. I don't feel afraid of anyone trying to kill me. I don't feel, even if I was afraid of anyone trying to kill me, I don't feel afraid in my environment. I feel I feel confident. I feel like I can handle things. I feel like if all the fears that I used to have were to come true, I can handle them. I have the tools here, and just in general, and this here in this place in my life. So a big thing for me has been, for my hypervigilance, has been the feelings were actually real feelings that had a reason. Maybe they were just more blown up than it would have been for the average person that is not in their fight or flight and doesn't have like low vagal tone, that comes from being in your fight or flight, or it comes from your parents being in their fight or flight, which is passed down to you. Look it up, low vagal tone, VAGAL. It's your vagus nerve, which is responsible for your fight or flight. A lot of people have damaged or not strong vagus nerves, which causes them to have issues like autism when they're born, or like other kind of issues like a lot of allergies, or there's different ranges, autoimmune disorders, whatever. So it's true that people with low vagal tone or fight or flight, strong fight or flight reflex or hypervigilance, it's true that we might react to something more strongly or radically than that normal person, but it doesn't mean that the problem isn't real. It doesn't mean that it's totally fake and totally made up. It just means that we're just reacting more crazy. So the first thing for me that I did to get rid of my hypervigilance was get rid of a lot of the problems I was dealing with in my life. Get myself out of the situations that made me feel paranoid. Move to a place where I could do that. For example, I used to live in Washington, D.C., which if you're a person that struggles with their fight or flight and you're very paranoid and scared that people are going to try to kill you, this is not a really good place to be. If you're like someone who's scared that people are going to try to kill them, and you're worried that this person is after me, that person's after me, and you have, I actually did have legitimate fears that had reasons. So some of it was legit, some of it was just paranoia. If that's you, Washington, D.C. is not the place for you. It's like you're surrounded by other people that are constantly in their fight or flight. You're surrounded by people with all kinds of mental issues, the health. People are not taking care of their health. People are not talking about their feelings. They're not talking about the most, the people that were the most attuned with their feelings that I ever met were people that were like just able to admit that they were taking psychiatric medications. That was like the extent of being able to talk to people in DC about feelings, which is crazy. So people were not talking about their feelings in the place I was living. People were not really proactive about their health. They weren't regularly going to the gym. Some people were, and maybe as a cope for their feelings or to look good or whatever, but it wasn't really a health-oriented place. People didn't really care about living long. They didn't care about their longevity. Financial stability was not a thing. People were living paycheck to paycheck. I was in debt the whole time I was there. I was in crazy debt. So it wasn't like the kind of place where you're just surrounded by, and people cared more about ideology than they would probably ever in their life care about their health or longevity. They cared a lot about politics, religion, collective issues that they probably had barely any control over. Some people did, but it was just like a very destructive environment. And a lot of people I know left that environment because they were getting burned by it. But the people that stayed, it's a kind of environment that usually makes people poorer and more in their fight or flight, more less healthy. People develop all kinds of health problems, physical cancer, health problems, the longer they stay in environments like that. So that was the first thing I did, was I removed myself from that environment. I moved to Texas. I spent a few years in Texas with the goal that Dallas had a big international airport, that the goal would be that I would use Dallas as a launching pad to move offshore. And offshore, I would try to find a place to live where I can be around a lot of nature, and I can be around a lot of expats, and try to have the digital nomad lifestyle. So I was kind of already aware of this lifestyle. That was the first thing that I did, was remove myself from the situations that spiked my fight or flight. Stopped talking to most people in my life, either intentionally or just fading out unintentionally. Stopped talking. I didn't talk to... I'm actually pretty close with my family right now, but it's a totally different relationship than it was when I was younger. So I kind of removed myself from and it's not about those people that you're removing yourself from their environment, from, you're removing yourself from communities that you used to be in, totally changing your environment and your social environment. It's not always about those people. It doesn't mean that those people are toxic for you. A lot of times when you are trying to remove yourself from your hypervigilant state of mind, you kind of have to change your reality. You have to change your paradigm so that the triggers, the things that reminded you of the self that you were when the fight or flight was a valid thing, suddenly don't exist. So part of removing yourself from triggers that will take you back to your unconscious fight or flight kicking back in, which was happening for me very frequently, part of that is removing yourself from places where people exist, or places or realities or social places, things where people exist that were there in your fight or flight time that remind you of that. So you have to not be really caught up with the whole moral and ethical and emotional part of this, because it's something you have to do to save yourself, save your life, and save whoever is going to be living with you or going to be with you in the future. You have to remove yourself from places, situations that bring you back to your old fight or flight self. And it doesn't really matter how nice the people are that happen to be, because you don't have a responsibility to them more than you have a responsibility to yourself and your health. So you have to radically, I think this should have been the first thing, you have to radically be committed to this process. You have to radically commit yourself to the process of getting yourself out of your fight or flight, or improving basically your goal is to help your body trick your body into feeling so safe that it exists for a really long time in a reality where it feels so safe that it does not ever need to be in fight or flight unless it legitimately has to. But you're trying to calm down your nervous system, basically, on a very deep level, and that's going to be really hard and impossible if, first of all, you're not committed fully to this process, and second of all, you're still engaging in things that remind you of the times that you were in your fight or flight the whole time. Remove myself from DC, remove myself from politics. That's a really hard thing to do, by the way. If you have worked I was working in right-wing politics, and I'm sort of doxing myself, but who cares? I don't live in the States anymore. So, if you worked in right-wing politics, and you worked for Donald Trump, or any of, Fox News, I worked for basically all these people, and I worked for a little bit of left, I worked for one left-wing media outlet, but mostly right-wing. And if you were in the political world in DC and you were kind of working for anything or anyone that might have been in the line of fire as controversial or anything, you'll know it's kind of hard to get yourself out of that career. Like, it's kind of a pigeonhole, because people might not want to be associated with you after you've been associated with like right-wing people or politics, or your friends are kind of in that world. Other people that are not in that world might not trust you, or they might feel like they don't really want the pain of being associated with you because they might get canceled or something might happen to them. So it's kind of hard, but I did it, and I got myself out of politics. And I also basically stopped talking to I have a lot of friends from that world, and any of my friends, by the way, if you're watching this and you're from the political world, text me anytime, say hi. And I'm actually not ignoring people actively, but I removed myself from any situations, events, and it was, part of it was gradual. It's kind of hard to stop. But over the years, really tried to get my mind out of anything that might have me interacting with that world too much. So yeah, it's like a long process to get yourself away from anything. And the thing is, when you're always in your fight or flight, you're kind of like this hyper vigilant person. It's gonna take a long time for you to learn how to not keep reintroducing this fight or flight energy back into your life. So you might leave a very fight or flight type of community, like the DC political community, but then you might attract a new type of fight or flight into your life. And then you leave that type of fight or flight, and then you'll attract a new type of fight or flight. So you're constantly going to be attracting this kind of energy. But over time, as long as you're first really committed to this process, I want to become a more relaxed person. I want to be not in my fight or flight, because I know and I see that it's going to make me a very powerful person if I'm not debilitated by this malady. So as long as you're committed to this, over time, your body's going to do what it needs to do to get yourself out of it. So you're going to keep attracting situations that are less and less and less fight or flighty, hypervigilant, or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to get easier and easier and easier. And you're going to attract jobs, ideas are going to come into your mind, you're going to do things over time that are going to sustain that future reality that you want. Whether consciously or unconsciously, you're going to do that. Once you've decided consciously that you want to become a more relaxed person, you want to have a relaxed nervous system, because you know that it's not only it's good for your health, it's good for you as a person, it's going to help you fulfill your life purpose in the best way possible. It's going to help you become wealthy, abundant, all the things you want to do. You're going to be more powerful, more confident. You're going to be able to be around people without intense social anxiety, which I still have intense social anxiety in a lot of situations, but nothing like it used to be. And it's not, I'm not on any medications. So imagine how hard it is when you had intense social anxiety, even when you were on drugs and alcohol 24/7. Imagine how much harder it must be to try to not have social anxiety and to do that when you're not on drugs and alcohol 24/7. I'm not on any drugs and alcohol, and I'm really good compared to that time. So the third thing is just lifestyle. You have to treat yourself like a baby, basically. And the baby is you and your feelings. It's like a little animal baby inside of you that's in their fight or flight. And every time this little baby is in their fight or flight, it's going to do what it needs to protect itself. Some people, you might call it a baby, you might call it lizard brain, but I don't like using the word lizard brain because people don't love lizards the way that they love a baby. Some people call it monkey brain. I like monkey brain because I like monkeys. Like, whatever makes you love this part of you and not see it as a monster, like, understand that this is you on a very animalistic level doing what it needs to protect itself. And you have to try to make yourself fall in love with this inner you, like this baby animal that's inside of you, that's doing whatever it can to protect itself. And you have to learn how to like love it and train it and parent it from scratch. Actually, lifestyle is just part of that. So what kind of lifestyle would you create for this like little baby that you're trying to like calm down? The baby is terrified, scared. The baby has never learned that it's safe. For whatever reason, maybe your parents were in a state of fight or flight when you were a child. Maybe they were in a state of fight or flight before you were born, and you inherited that because you can inherit it. Maybe you were in a state of fight or flight later on in life, which is less likely to affect you on such a deep level, but it will affect you. It can still affect you severely. But whatever age it was where the fight or flight was introduced into your life, you're basically going to try to retrain that little baby, little animal, to know that life is safe and it's okay and nothing's going to happen to it. And you have to allow this baby child to kick and scream for a while. It has to know that it's safe to kick and scream and cry in your arms, without everything falling apart. So you have to create a safe situation for it to do that until it trusts you fully enough. And this is going to take a long time. I think I'm going to make a lot more videos about this because I'm still learning so much. I'm learning so much about myself. And it's really the most amazing journey I've ever been on, is like learning about myself, learning how to feel okay. It's amazing. Also, it's amazing to get to know a new version of you that never existed, which is like a normal version of you. Like, imagine the first time you had like your favorite drug. Like, for some people it's like Coke. For some people it's like THC. Like, imagine like your favorite drug and you have it for the first time and you are like in love and you're like, oh my god, I never knew that I could be this person. For some people it's alcohol. They feel very confident when they drink alcohol. Imagine if that could be you, but for real. Like, imagine if that was you. Imagine if like the most amazing trip that you've ever had was you, but in real life and 24/7. But even better, like you never had a crash, no health effects from it, no consequences. Actually more powerful, even more powerful. You don't have to like worry about it like fading, like you don't have to worry about it fading, making you sick, or not being as effective over time. Like, it can be you forever, and even better and better and better. Like, imagine that. That's what it feels like to be going on this journey. That's exactly what it feels like. And actually, I think I manifested this when I was one of the first times I had a THC gummy when I was in DC. And it was like this really awesome smoke shop. I was walking home from this smoke shop that was selling like edibles, and I was on the train, and I was just living this weird spontaneous life, even as a employee. Like, I don't know how any employer dealt with me. I was just always, I just was in my own la la land that it wasn't even my mind. Like, I don't know where I was. I was nowhere. But anyways, had the best trip of my life, because it was like the first or second time I ever had a gummy. And I remember thinking, like, I wish I could be like this person. Like, I feel so amazing and I wish I can be like this. And I want to be like this. I want to feel like this all the time. I want to be this person that all of a sudden, I'm not worried about anyone trying to hurt me. I'm not worried about guilt of anyone's expectations of me. I'm not worried about anything. I just feel so good. And I felt energetic too. Like with the Seroquel, the psychiatrist gave me Seroquel for anxiety. I would fall asleep and I felt so tired when I took it. Right away, I felt very tired. But in that moment, in that THC trip, I felt amazing. Like I that's when I knew that that's what I wanted to feel like all the time. And I manifested the kind of life that I could feel like that all the time. And I mean, it grows also. It gets better and better. But it's a long process, and it's really rewarding. Okay, so the baby. It's really hard when you're in a place where the culture, the language, the energy is not very suitable for children, so to speak, to try to mother and baby your inner child, especially if you yourself grew up with a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, like you're a bad person, your anger is bad, your feelings are bad, because your feelings, whenever your feelings come out, they hurt somebody inevitably. So you basically were trained that your feelings are really bad and that you should be always pushing them down. And so you're in a culture and environment that is constantly reminding you that your feelings are bad. And if you try to be there for yourself, your little baby self, you're kind of a leech on society. So you have to learn how to treat yourself like a little baby that you're raising from scratch, and you have to learn how to fall in love with that process and fall in love with the little baby and start to feel proud of it. And there are a lot of environments and communities where you can do that, and the environment and the community supports that. Like, a lot of people are very personal development oriented, they're very health oriented, like here in Bali. You can totally do that in Bali, but not just in Bali, in a lot of expat communities, in a lot of communities where people are kind of new and starting their life over, transient. DC does have this too in certain parts. I just wasn't really in it. I was in like the parts where I was mostly around the movers and shakers of politics. But you kind of have to, however it's going to look like, put yourself in a culture where you can basically sustain and raise from scratch this like little child that's inside of you, that was scared, that was in their fight or flight, that was their and the thing with feelings is like, you can tell your feelings to go away all you want, but they won't go away. The more you tell feelings to go away, the worse feelings get. Feelings are like water. You try to control water, water is very powerful. You try to control water and contain it, it's gonna explode at you. Instead of trying to control and stop the water, you want to maybe channel the water. And your feelings need to be felt. Their energy, your feelings can take you to great heights, and your feelings are actually there in support and love of you. They're a sign of life. They're a sign of an energy that exists in the universe that loves you and is trying to protect you. So your feelings are probably the best friends that you'll ever have on this planet. Nobody loves and cares about you more than your feelings. You have to learn how to train your body and your feelings to trust you if you want them to ever be on your side, if you ever want to feel in control of them. So that's going to require validating them to begin with, and letting them know, and really helping them know and believe fully that they're the best thing that ever happened to you, because they are the best thing that ever happened to you. And if it's hard for you to believe this, read literature, get to know your feelings, read books about how important your feelings are. I need to make more videos because I need to find more like literature and stuff I can share with you guys about this. Therapy is good, talk therapy, like, I don't know what types of therapy you guys are going to. I found therapy to be very expensive, so and it wasn't really helping with the deepest issue for me, which is fight or flight. It's not something you can talk through. It's like trying to stop overthinking by thinking about it. Your lizard brain doesn't really have a logical brain. It just needs to feel safe. And you can make it feel safe by creating a routine, making sure it's fed, making sure it's getting a good sleep, making sure it's eating whole foods, good foods that reduce inflammation in your body. Inflammation can cause your fight or flight to be more active. So you want to eat foods that will reduce inflammation in your body. We drink a lot of coconuts here, a lot of ginger, lemongrass tea. No artificial sugars. Like, we basically have no artificial sugars at all. Which I know for a lot of you is like almost impossible, since your diet is filled with sugars. But you really need to cut that out of your diet, especially if you struggle with hypervigilance. I don't eat like any gluten, maybe sometimes sourdough. So your lifestyle, because this is like a little baby animal, you don't want the baby to be colicky and have gut problems and be crying and not able to go to sleep. Like, you want to give it a routine, make sure that it's fed regularly, and be actually like militantly, like, pretend that this is a cult that you're part of, and the cult is the cult of you, or the cult of your baby. You are the baby. Like, you have to be part of this cult that is just like ride or die, gonna make this routine and structure happen for you, for your baby, for your inner baby. So sleeping, eating healthy, exercise. We get massages twice a week, which for a lot of you guys won't be realistic, because you live in a country where massages are very expensive. But I live in Bali, Indonesia, where massages are like $7 an hour for like an amazing massage. So I get massages twice a week. Anything that relaxes your body. We go to the sauna, steam room, swimming almost every day. Usually in the afternoons. So if there's swimming pools nearby, here there's a lot of swimming pools, but maybe you have a gym nearby, maybe you can go play basketball at the park, any kind of physical activity, really, that gets your juices flowing regularly. That's like a routine. That's a regular thing that creates a sense of regularity and safety for your little baby, your inner baby. You can't really, if you're having a panic attack or a freak out, a manic episode, whatever you want to call it, intense fight or flight feelings, you can't really stop it when it's happening. Your best bet is to love it, is to really learn, and this is going to take a while for you to learn how to talk, and you have to have enough of these episodes as practice until you learn how to do this. So if it happens, actually really good. If it happens after you watch this video, very good, because you can practice, and you're not going to get it right the first time or the second time or even the 10th time. Like, it just has to be over a long period of time. Practice talking to yourself, your little baby, and soothing it and telling it it's going to be okay, and the baby's going to say, but what if you're just saying this to pacify me because you don't want me to freak out because we're in the middle of a street and you don't want us to be embarrassed? And you tell it, you know what? You're the most important thing. You're my priority. You're my little baby. You're my best friend on this planet. You're keeping me safe. You've done your best to keep me safe. But I want you to know that I got your back and you're okay and I got you. And I'm going to keep us safe because I'm powerful now. I'm learning all these things about myself, self-development, my health, about how to take care of you. You're not alone anymore. I have you. And little baby won't believe you the first or second time because, like, you weren't able to control it before, so why should it believe you now? But over time, as you do this, a little baby, which lies in your unconscious mind, will believe this because you're telling it enough. It's going to believe it. And over time, you're going to see that your body starts to trust you. And the feelings don't not happen again. Your little baby doesn't stop crying to you, but it starts to trust you. And it becomes easier to channel so that the freak out, the fight or flight, doesn't have to manifest into immediate action. Always. It doesn't have to manifest into you shouting and yelling in the middle of the street. When the feeling happens, the intense fight or flight happens, and you're walking in the middle of the street, and normally it would manifest into you shouting and yelling and hitting the next person you see. It might manifest in a healthier situation where your body is starting to trust you. It might manifest into you telling your body, your little child, your little inner child, I got you, and I'm here, and you can cry to me. And you might even rub yourself, touch where it hurts. I learned this from my friend who does somatic therapy. Touch yourself, like a baby. It's gonna be okay here. Does it hurt here? If your arm hurts, you kiss it, like self-soothing. And hey, you know what? You know where's a place that you can cry and scream as much as you want and nobody's gonna hurt us? If you just give me 2 minutes until we get home, I'm gonna get us home as fast as I can, and you can cry to me all you want, and you can shout and scream, and we go home, nobody's there, we shout, we scream, yell, punch the wall, punch the pillow, whatever you can give to your inner child to release all these terrible feelings or very intense feelings. I don't want to say terrible. See, like, I'm still learning. And your body over time starts to trust you when you tell it, you know what, it's gonna be okay. Let's just take a minute. Instead of yelling, instead of trying to release these feelings at this person, at your partner, at your friend, at your parent, not because we're trying to protect these people, we have to be relentlessly, we have to be relentlessly pro the little baby. The little baby is the main priority, okay? You never tell the little baby, oh, we don't want to hurt these people. Nah, the little baby will try to hurt these people more. For good reason, because the little baby is trying to let you know that it is the priority. So this little baby is a priority, and we're going to say, it's not safe for you to come out in the presence of these people, because these people don't love you as much as I love you. These people won't be able to take care of you as much as I take care of you. These people don't understand you. They're not with you. I'm with you because I'm in my head. So have these conversations with your inner child. You're seething in a fight or flight reaction. Have conversations with your inner child and say, I got you. I'm with you. And I'm going to find us a place where we can feel these things and not be interrupted by anything and anybody. And no one can tell us that our feelings are wrong. And maybe it's in the next room. Maybe it's in a walk in the forest. Maybe it's in the swimming pool. We're going to do it inside of our mind. But in the beginning, it might require you to do it in a place, it takes a while for your body to actually be able to have these conversations with you. So the more privacy that you can find, the better, which is why it's really nice to be in a place where you have a lot of parks or walkable areas or private places, nature, or whatever, so you can walk and do that. Get yourself to a place where you can be private. When we were in Mexico, in Chiapas, there were so many hills and trails and stuff that were that were so private. I made some of the videos there. So yeah, you're basically going to be raising your inner child from scratch in a new environment, in a new situation, that is with the new you that is learning and more capable. Than the new you is always going to be more powerful than the little baby you. So all you have to do is let this little baby you know that you got his back. And you're going to become even more powerful. You're going to keep having its back. And you're going to be there for it in the way that nobody else can. And yeah. So you have to commit yourself to the process. Number 1, commit yourself to the process. Number 2, you're going to have to shed yourself from any reality that makes the fight or flight have to be there. Maybe move yourself to a different place. Talk to different people. Change your religion. I don't know. Change things around so that or just make it that the reason for the initial fight or flight reason doesn't exist anymore. Even though if you change your situation, it still won't be enough. You're still going to have to re-raise your little inner child from scratch in this new paradigm, which is 3. Re-raising your inner child in this new existence in which you're treating it to trust you, and to trust that you're gonna keep it safe. And the fight or flight happened, the initial fight or flight, which became the reason for your long-term hypervigilance, it happened because maybe you were abused as a child by your cousin or whatever, or you were your family was financially struggling, or you were bullied in school, whatever it was. You take yourself away from situations where you might be getting bullied. You take away financial instability from your life in whatever way you need to do it. Sometimes it takes people decades to figure this out, and it's a situation that perpetuates itself. You become the master of this thing that hurt you so much. Master the thing that made you feel so insignificant in the past. It's okay. It's fun, actually. Remove yourself completely from any situations where anyone could have abused you, like they did in that time when you felt like the first time you were brought into your fight or flight in that situation. Make the problem non-existent so that your body has a reason to trust you over time. So if you commit yourself to any cause, it's gonna be successful eventually. So commit yourself to this cause, which is dealing with your hypervigilance, becoming a calmer version of yourself, where having a calm nervous system, and it's gonna be successful. It's gonna happen. And as a digital nomad, I find that it's even easier than if I were to be in one place and try to make this happen. Because if I was in one place and I was trying to grow really fast, I would be constantly pulled back into my old versions because I would be constantly surrounded by the same things. There wouldn't be like movement or change happening in my environment. It shouldn't be an obstacle. And get rid of any literature, shows, social media stuff that makes, a lot of cultures, people think that feelings are bad, that, anything that makes you feel like your feelings are bad, there's something wrong or evil about you, just try to get rid of those influences. Let your little baby trust you and know that you really, really, really want to know how it feels, and you really want all of its feelings, and you appreciate it. And over time, you'll be able to be completely in control of them and channel them through you. It's going to be like a natural thing. You won't even have to learn how to do it. But maybe I'll make more videos about this in the future. And for anyone whose Achilles heel is survival and financial stability, financial freedom, I'd highly recommend my book, House Hackers Anonymous, and you'll see it in the description. It's my personal plan, how I've achieved financial freedom, which is a really big thing for me and still is to this day. Financial freedom is like the, being poor and being poverty is like one of my biggest Achilles heels. It's like my biggest fight or flight triggers, which is why I felt motivated to do the digital nomad thing in the first place, because I'm able to save so much money by not living in the place where I came from the States. So, but I wrote out my whole plan, like how I made the money in the first place, how I did everything, how not just my own personal strategy for becoming financially free and my escape plan, but also everything that I learned along the way is in that book. I think that even if it didn't apply to your personal situation exactly, which probably might on some level, because A to Z I've described, from dumpster diving to being, totally independent and traveling as an investor. So I've really described the steps at every level in your journey that you could possibly be in. But even if you find that it doesn't apply to your exact situation, it's probably going to inspire you, give you really good ideas. And it's, I tried to make it as simple to read as possible. And hope you enjoy it. And especially for people living in the States, because that's where I'm from, and that's where the hacks were the most relevant. So I hope you enjoy it if you check it out. See you guys in the next video.